Good morning. We're going to be reading from Daniel. Uh, there's 12 chapters in Daniel. It's in the Old Testament. It's between Ezekiel and Hosea and Amos. And it was set in the 6th century BC. Israel was in exile. He and his friends have been also taken to exile. And they have to, they're living in this world they don't want to be living in. It's a pagan society. They're they've got to decide if they're going to follow the culture where they are living, or if they want to remain faithful to God. So we're going to find out what happens with Daniel and everything, and whether he changes some people's minds. And this will be teaching us how to be faithful in a society that we don't always feel reflects how we, as Christians, our belief system with, as being Christians and everything, okay? And so some things that we're going to learn is that God's sovereign over the kingdom of the world. He's able to deliver, but does not guarantee that he will do so in every certain instance. So we may pray to him and want something to happen, but we got to realize that it doesn't always happen when we want it to, and sometimes it won't even happen at all. And the future is in God's hands and under his sovereign control. So we've got to let go and let God, and we got to trust in him. Okay. So I'm going to read from Daniel 1. And it says, Daniel's training in Babylon. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, he's going to be Neb, okay? King of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. So Jehoiakim, King Jehoiakim, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, he's evil. So he sides first with the Egyptians, then went back to Babylon, and then he said, never mind, I want to be independent. But guess what? Babylon came and took it over. So Neb comes in, and he takes over. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. Those he carried off to the temples of his God in Babylonia, and put in the treasure house of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of the court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. So the chief of the of his court officials were called Enoch, and they're privileged. And even though it's not stated, there's a possibility that Daniel and his friends were eunuchs. Okay, so continue on. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. And I described him. He wants these perfect people, which we know for a fact that God's people are not perfect. We still have some flaws, but in their eyes, they're looking at their physical attributes, they're looking at their intellect, but there still could be some flaws. So let's continue on. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Okay, so it talks about the language and the literature. So it was Akkadian, and it was in cuneiform, which is more with like symbols and everything. Think sort of if I think modern, like the Chinese, the Japanese type of writing, that's not necessarily cuneiform, but that would just give you like a visualization of, how they wrote, how their language was. And they produced a massive body of literature of all types. And Aramaic began to replace Akkadian by the time of Ned's scholars, by the time of Ned's rule. So scholars continue to study and write literature in their classical tongue. And Babylonians was commonly applied to Babylonians in general, and also the guild of astrologers, diviners, and other practitioners of wisdom, to which Daniel was being introduced to. Okay, so here's part of why I'm reading this. It is believed that the wise men came from Babylonia. Okay, so these are the wise men in the Christmas story. Among those who were chosen were some of Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. I know how to sing that song. Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Okay, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to discuss the names, and then we're going to talk about why he chose that, okay? So, Daniel means God is my judge. Belteshazzar means Lady protect the king, referring to the goddess Sarpantutu, wife of the god Marduk. Hananiah means Lord is gracious. Shadrach means I am fearful of the God. Mishael means who is this, what God is. Meshach means I have little account. Azariah means the Lord has helped me. Abednego means servant of the god Nebo. Okay, so he didn't want to defile himself because that food has unclean. Remember, when they talked about different rules and laws of the with Moses, and they talk about unclean food, and they have they can't have certain food that has like lifeblood in it, and they can't mix meat and dairy, things like that. So, and they also probably been offered to their idols. Again, and that goes against the with the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not have any other God. Okay. So he's like, I don't want to have that. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid, my lord the king, who has assigned you your food and drink. Why should he see you look worse than the other young men your age? The king would have my head because of you. So he's afraid that he's going to wither away. I'm going to continue later. Okay, continuing on. Verse 11. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. So it reminded me of a vegan diet. I said the royal food and wine must have been very rich, and there's a lot of gluttony, which is one of the 7 sins. Because you're going to find out what happened. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and more better nourished than of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine, and they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. So he basically led them into a vegan diet. To the 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds, so he was like a prophet. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into the surface, the chief official presented them to Neb. The king talked with them and found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service, and every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. So magicians were like the sacred writers, and I would say enchanters may be wise men, I don't know. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So I want to find out what that means. We're going to talk later about, in the future ones, about who King about King Neb. I'm not going to even try to pronounce it right. And the fact that he built one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Okay, with that, be blessed. May these words of the Bible help you in some way. And we will continue on and find out why I wanted to go through the book of Daniel.